Hey everybody, welcome back to the 80s Slashers YouTube channel. In this video, I will be ranking each and every year in the 1980s based on the quantity and, more importantly, the quality of the slasher films released each year. So, this will be kind of a finale video for the series. The series that I did basically, on this channel that was titled, The Year in Slashers, where I went through 1980 through 1989. And I broke down every year and discussed all the slashers released each year. Now, this video, of course, will be highly subjective and based on, my own particular likes and tastes within the genre. Some of the decisions made, in order to rank these years was influenced, like I said, by the quantity of the films released that year. But more often than not, they were these decisions were affected more by what I viewed as the quality of the slashers released each year. All right, so with all of that little intro out of the way, let's just jump right into this and get on with the rankings. So let's first take a look at the what I believe is the worst year in the 80s for slasher films. So let's start it off with number 10. All right, so coming in at number 10, of course, we have 1985. Now, there's no way any other year could have fit here, just due to the sheer quantity of films released. Regardless of the quality of these films, having a year with only 6 films is in comparison to the other years of the 80s, is a miserable year. With that being said, the quality of these films isn't great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. Looking here, obviously the highlight for me is Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. That's my favorite film in this year, and I really like that film. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. It's a good film. It's not one of my favorites. It's not one of the worst in the franchise, but it is what it is. Blood Tracks is a fun entry in the genre. It's one of the few rock and roll slashers, so that's always good to see. Everything else is pretty forgettable. Nail Gun Massacre, of course, is fun. It's not no one's gonna say it's a good movie, but it's certainly a fun party movie, fun to sit down and have a laugh at. So, yeah, without a doubt, 1985 is the weakest year in the 80s for the slasher films, in my opinion, of course. All right, let's move on and take a look at number 9. All right, so coming at number 9, we have 1986. Now, when I look at this list of films, I it's almost like a theme is like, these are decent or good slashers. There's nothing great. Besides Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. There's nothing else that I would consider like a top tier slasher for me. There's quite a few like next tier type films that I enjoyed. Chopping Mall, Killer Party, Evil Laugh, Slaughter High, April Fool's Day. Those are decent films, and there's quite a few of them. It's just besides like Friday 13th Part 6, there's no big standouts here for me. Now, this year is also tied for the second lowest quantity released, only 13 films. So again, that kind of plays into this as well. So Yeah, like I said, I don't think this is a bad year. 1986, it's fine. It's just not an overly strong year when I look at it. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just I get like I said, like we're just comparing them against each other, and it's my subjective opinion. But for me, I wish there was more films, and I wish it was a little more top heavy. But again, it's a fine year. All right, let's go on and take a look at number eight. All right, so coming at number eight, we have 1988. Now, first thing looking at this year is obviously this is a really solid year for quantity, with a total of 20 films being released, which is fantastic. I actually think this is a pretty solid year. I do. I like 1988. In terms of top tier films, again, it's not super heavy, and that's why it's I have it at number eight. We have Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers, which for me is fantastic, and I'll put Child's Play in there as well. It's not one of my, it's probably a lower end for me of top tier films, but yeah, it's definitely there. Now the next tier type films, we have Maniac Cop, Edge of the Axe, Cheerleader Camp, Hide and Go Shriek, Halloween 4. There's some pretty good films in here. It's just like I said, it's not a top heavy year. But when you mix in like the solid number of films that are acceptable, that are pretty good here, with the quantity, that's it's why it's ranked number eight where it's at. But again, like I said, I think 88's a pretty good year. All right, let's move on to number seven. All right, so coming at number seven, we have 1989. Now, again, another solid year in terms of quantity, with 18 films released. Now, the difference for me for 1989 versus 1988 is there's a few more top tier films here. We have Intruder, which I absolutely love. I'm someone who really likes Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan, so that's a top tier for me. Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland, and I'll put Nightmare Beach in there as well. Those four films are fantastic. That kind of make that top end really good for me. And then the next tier down uh, is not super strong. Again, that this is a year that was definitely for me dominated by the top heavy films. But there's some like Cutting Class is okay. Death Spa. I don't know, like yeah, I don't know. It's, and there's a lot of lower end films here. Um, but yeah, so I put it ahead of 88 just because it had those four, a top tier slashers that really work for me. So that's why it's here. All right. Yeah, so that was number seven, 1989. Let's go on and take a look at number six. All right, so coming at number six, we have 1987. Now, this is the year this is the second highest quantity of films, with 21. So that's fantastic. 21 slashers is such a good output of films. Now, this one has actually, for me, less top tier films than 1989 had. I only have three here. I have, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Stage Fright, and Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2 are for me my, things I would consider top tier slashers. But the next tier of films for this year is really strong. Films like The Majorettes, Killer Workout, Blood Rage, Stepfather, even Slaughterhouse is okay. um, So, American Gothic, Berserk. I haven't seen Berserker yet, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like something I'm gonna like, but maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, that second tier. There's just more enjoyable films in '87 than in '89 or '88 for me. Even though, like I said, it's one less of like the top tier from '89. I'm still gonna put it ahead of '89. And then also when you throw in the fact that there is more of a, more quantity released. 87, 88, 89, they're all really close. It was kind of hard to rank these 3 years for me. It's kind of like the little resurgence after like the lull of like 85, 86 was like the low point. And then, they kind of had a little resurgence. So, yeah, these 3 years are hard to rank, but again, it's just highly subjective, just based on my tastes and likes. So, yeah, all right. So that, like I said, that does it for the mid to late 80s years. 85 through 89. Obviously, those are all the lower ranked ones. So now we're about to get into the early 80s years, which obviously, based on my ranking here, is where I think the strength of the genre lies in these 80 to 84. So yeah, let's just start and take a look at some of these years. So we'll continue on to number five. All right, so coming in at number five, we have 1982. Now, this is another solid year in terms of quantity, with a total of 19 films being released. And, of these 19 films, for me, I have three of these ones ranked as, top tier slashers. I have The New York Ripper, I have Friday the 13th, Part 3, and The Slumber Party Massacre. And, there's only three, but those three films are big, heavy hitters for me. Love those films. Now, but the next tier of films is super solid. We have The Dorm That Dripped Blood, Visiting Hours, Girls' Night Out, Unhinged, Alone in the Dark. It's just it's a really solid year, and even like some of the lesser quality films, are not terrible. Like I look at like things like The Forest is not great. There's a lot of low budget films on here, but there's you know yeah, I think it's just a really good solid year. Um, yeah, and another thing, this film, like this is the first one on this list that actually has a 3D film in Friday the 13th Part 3, which is great. I love that. I love that there's that 3D element thrown in here. So yeah, this 82 is I think is a pretty good year. Of the early 80s, obviously I have it ranked here, so it's the weakest of the early 80s. But just like I said, on the strength of those three top tier films, it ranks ahead of anything in the mid to late 80s for me. Yeah, all right, so that's number five, 1982. So let's go on and take a look at number four. All right, so coming at number four, we have 1984. Now, this is the other year that is tied for the second least amount of quantity of films released. Um, so yeah, that's not great. Obviously, like obviously these early '80s years, it's always good when we had a higher number. There's more chances for more hits, I guess. But 1984 for me again has three films that reach a top tier for me: Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, besides those, three top tier films, almost everything else in this year is pretty solid. The Initiation is a good film. Fatal Games I really like. Splatter University is a lot of fun. The Mutilator is a lot of fun. October Blood is fun. Silent Madness is fun. there's a lot of films here to like. And there's also another 3D film, which is great, in Silent Madness, which, again, it's a film that I like, regardless of the 3D, but the 3D adds a really fun element to it. So, yeah, I feel this was, this is the period of time. It was just a great time for slasher films. It's just, even the lower quality, small budget type films had a had a feeling and a vibe to them. They were just kind of, following the formula, and they just, I don't know, they just seemed to all work in some way. They were all at least a little fun. So yeah, it's just, this is a really, really good year. You know, I wish there was more films in '84. That's why it doesn't rank as high as, the next couple years. But I don't know. It's just, it's still a solid year. You can't knock it. Like, those top films are really good. All right, let's move on to number three. All right, so coming at number three, we have 1983. Now, again, the quantity of this year is not great. We only have 14 films. It's not terrible, when you compare it to like the six and 85, but, in comparison to some of the higher output years, it's a little lacking. So that's too bad. I wish there was more, because this, like I said, this was a great time for slashers. But what we get is great. I have actually, in 1983, I have five top tier films this year. So up to this point in the rankings, that's the most we have. I have The House on Sorority Row, Curtains, Pieces, Bloody Moon, and Sleepaway Camp. That's a really strong top five films for this year. Really, really good. You know, um, that alone is why it's number three. You know, and after that, like, there's not a lot. Like The Final Terror is okay. Madhouse is a good film. Mortuary is a good film. Mountaintop Motel Massacre, it's all right. It's a little dry for me. But so there's some decent films. Like, it's a fairly solid year, but those top five films just puts ahead of anything that came after it. 84 through 89. So yeah, 83 for me was really, really good year. All right, so yes, let's that was number three, so let's move on and take a look at number two. All right, so coming at number two, we have 1980. And 1980, we have a total of 15 films, which is, it's okay. It's, it's pretty, it's a respectable output, especially considering it was, the first year, basically, that we're talking about here, that kicked off the whole genre. Once again, I have five top tier films. Of course, we have Friday the 13th, Maniac, Prom Night, Terror Train, and Nightmares. I'm going to put in as a top tier film, one I just recently watched and reviewed, which I really liked. But the next tier is kind of what sets it apart from 1983. The next tier in this film, I think, is a little stronger than 83. You have He Knows You're Alone, Christmas Evil, New Year's Evil, Mother's Day. It's top to bottom. This is I'll even throw Motel Hell in there. It's this solid year, really good film. There's not too many weak films in this whole year. Schizoid is another one that I really liked. Yeah, this is just a really good year. And, in considering the fact that this year contains my favorite 80s slasher of all time, Friday the 13th, it has to go at number two. I think it's just an amazing year, but it cannot compete with number one. As good as I think 1980 is, having my favorite film of all time, it doesn't compete with the number one on this list. So let's just move on and take a look at number one. All right, so coming at number one, of course, we have the year 1981. Now, 1981 has a total of 23 films, which is the highest output of any year in the 80s. Now, up until this point in the rankings, the highest we've had for me to have top tier rated films is five. 1983 and 1980 both had 5 films that I consider top tier. 1981 has 10, which is crazy. So the films that I consider top tier films is Halloween 2, My Bloody Valentine, The Prowler, The Funhouse, Friday the 13th Part 2, Graduation Day, Just Before Dawn, The Burning, Happy Birthday to Me, and Final Exam. Crazy. All of those 10 films I really like. I enjoy. I know there's probably a few in there that some people wouldn't consider top tier, but for me, I like them enough. I'm going to include them on there. But then you have the other films that didn't quite make that tier, which are still really good films. So you have films like Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, Madman, Bloody Birthday, Eyes of a Stranger, Hell Night, Night School. It's just, man, like there's so many films in this list. And then there's even like the lower quality, cheesier films that are still fun. Like Don't Go in the Woods is not a good film, but it's really fun. Same thing with Home Sweet Home. Again, no one's gonna argue it's a good film, but for whatever reason, it's a fun one to watch, and it's entertaining and cheesy, and it's yeah, this is just it's just a crazy year. There's any other year in the 80s, it's unrivaled, like based on the quality and the quantity. Just like 85, there was no way you could get around putting that at number 10. 81, there's no way you can avoid putting it at number 1 for me. It's just it's the best year in slashers, and if you look at like regular horror, other films outside of the slasher genre, 81 might be one of the strongest years in all of horror. There was a lot of other films that were released, so I don't know what it was about 81, but man, it was just it was the peak time. It was fantastic. So yeah, guys, that's my top 10 ranking of every year in the 80s for slashers. Now, if you just before we go here, just put up a quick thing here. If you compare my rankings, how I rank these from 10 to 1, with how IMDb, the website, Internet Movie Database, has them. So what I did was every one of these films, I took the average rating and averaged them out and gave them, every year has an average rating, and I ranked them accordingly. And if you look at the IMDb ratings next to mine, it's pretty close. There's a couple years here and there off, but for the most part, it's pretty close, and I was kind of surprised by that. Obviously 81 is the best ranked film, without a doubt. And 85 is the least ranked, so we're pretty good there. 1980, we have the same spot, and 83. So the top 3 are the exact same. The top 4 actually are this, yeah. So the top 4 ratings are the exact same, and then once we get to the top 5, so it has 87 and 88 ahead of 82. So yeah, it in the middle years there, it kind of differs there, but then at the bottom, 85 and 86. So pretty close. I'm kind of surprised by that, and yeah, I don't know, just something kind of interesting to look at. All right, guys. So that's it. That's the entire my own personal subjective reviews rankings for these for the years. Now, like I said, if you haven't checked out the the earlier videos in this series, the Year in Slashers, I'll put a link at the end of the video here for the playlist. You can go back and watch every year from 1980 to 89 and check those out. And yeah, that's about it. So all right, guys. Until next time. All right. See ya.